Hi, welcome to my journey. You know, this food stamp situation is a prime example of the breaching of contracts that has been done throughout history, right? It's happened over and over and over again, right? They'll give and they'll tell you, take this, go on the reservation, we'll feed you, we want to take over your land, but we don't want to kill you. Okay? They did the same thing. They did the same thing to the black people, right? When they tried to release them from slavery. And they told them, go on over there, take what you can carry, because, we don't want to kill you and we can't keep you because, what we've been doing to you was cruel and inhumane. Okay? So here we are giving them our taxes, our support, telling them with support you have imminent power, right? And they're saying, yeah, but go on over there because we don't want to kill you. And buy sustainable foods because, you might not get nothing else from us. Okay? So this is where you have to realize that in order for something to be effective, like what they're doing is they're betting everything on an outcome, right? And the only way to defeat somebody who says, they're betting the house, okay, that they're going to win, right? And you're like, how do you win against the house? Let's talk about it. The only way that you can win against the house is by making the house prove that it has value, right? The house has to be more than just, sticks and mortar, all right? It has to be more than that. So, what has happened as a result of the internet and global awareness is that a lot of these other countries, who have believed that America was abundant and that, these companies that was going over there, doing business with them were just rich businessmen until they started seeing Americans cry that they're over here, starving and dealing with inflation. Then they were like, whoa, why are we doing business with Americans that are mistreating their own people, right? And as we start to look into things further through our investigation, right, and the ability to retrieve information using data retrieval through AI, we start realizing that, not only had they been dealing with inflation, but they also been dealing with fillers. What are the fillers? The fillers are these bad carbs, these these bad starches that affect our bodies over time and causes diseases. It will break your body down over time. Okay? Then we have the preservatives, right? What are the preservatives? The salts, the sugars, the things that, we do to try to stop the food from deteriorating, right? We try to halt the growth of the food, period, okay? Which, is like trying to put them in suspended animation. Right? And in a way we can do it, but we can't preserve the life. We can't preserve the nutrients. That's the one thing we cannot do. Right? That's why when we have canned foods and stuff, it ends up being like bad for us in different ways. Through the salt, through the sugar, right? And so now they're starting to say, well, there are certain bacteria that can live through salt and sugar. And I'm like, well, if there's certain bacteria that can live off of salt and sugar, and that's the preservative that we use to extend the life of our food, what the hell is going on here? Right? And what made me even think about that is the fact that, everybody's saying, buy sustainable foods, which is, either it's highly processed foods, whether it's because it was dehydrated, salted, cured with sugar, yeah. And I'm like, but if that's where the bacteria and the parasites grow, what are we doing here? Yeah, what are we doing here? So, I'm drinking my protein iced coffee. So here's one of the things that, had crossed my mind today. You know how they stopped the SNAP's benefits, right? Well, the Indians there's still a heavy population of Indians living off of reservations that are supposed to have a contract with the government to this day, that by them being on the reservation, that they were still going to be provided food, right? They were told this so that they would stay out of the way, stay out of society, and so right now they are again in violation of a half a century contract that they had made, with the Native Americans that were, definitely put on these reservations, because they're definitely, they were not allowed to acclimate or infiltrate or participate in white society. Because white society had said the only good Indian is a dead Indian. And that's what they called them back then. They called them Indians. And they said that the reason why they had called them Indians is because, they thought that they had, came upon India, and so they called them Indians. But it wasn't India. It was just a new form of indigenous people that were brown skinned, right? Because everybody below the oh man, we'd almost have to figure out, the calculations, of the degree in which, if you're below this degree, then your skin would, be more melanated, for survival purposes, because that will be your environment. I have seen, even white people who, have migrated, you could tell that they were white, but they were definitely darker than myself. So I'm sure the Indians will concur that over the years, the government has been pulling back, the support and the food that they said that they were going, they were going to give the Indians, because they have forced the Indians to stop fishing, to stop, hunting, to stop even clam digging, to stop, selling their trees on their property, because, they would just designate the reservation to also be a natural reserve, to preserve the ecology. Okay, so it was a hard, pill to swallow. Okay, and that was another thing that had came to my mind last night, right? Was in the process of thinking about the red pill and the blue pill, right? And it's like, was it intended that the red or the blue pill to be a pill that would allow people to leave this realm? I mean, literally to leave this realm. And that's something that we don't really talk about, because, they sort of forbid us to talk about death. They really do. They forbid us to talk about death. Just like they outlaw suicide as if, there's, the remote possible way that they could penalize you after you're dead. They cannot. Anyway, it's just that the sad part about it is, because a lot of people don't know that, they might have purpose here in this life, and they may be definitely unsuccessful at terminating their life. Because, you know, if you were here if you were sitting here on a purpose, you know, God don't play about that. God don't play about that. And you cannot even renege. You may think you can renege, but you ain't gonna be able to renege. You're not. And a lot of us, we have inclinations, you know, that there is something, you know, serious that, you know, we're destined to fulfill. And it's scary as hell. It is definitely scary as hell. And a lot of us, you know, we don't want to face it. We don't want to, you know, fulfill it. We don't want the consequences. We don't want the opposition. We don't want the, you know, we don't want to be a POW. Darn it. So, that's another consequence that's going to happen as a result of this flexing that America is doing, right? Now, a lot of countries, what they had decided to do is they also ban American food. Okay? So when that happened, that's not our government though, right? Aldi's is privately owned. Walmart is privately owned. Home Depot, they're privately owned. They're not the government. Even though the government, you know, invested supplements and subsidize and grants and tax and tax reductions to these companies. Right? And it doesn't just stop with them, right? McDonald's, how did McDonald's get global? And all of these other franchises become global. It was a specific agreement, right? And I know that you all are sitting up here talking about, well, you know, they were rich. Okay, let's talk about how the most wickedest country on the planet got rich. They got rich throughout history. We know this already. Through slave labor, right? We already know this. Through oppression, yes. Right? Through inequity, right? Because even though they're saying, hey, you know, why don't you become a manager? And, you know, and like I said, you know, you can become a manager and, you know, you'll settle for a salary position only getting a couple of dollars more than, say, somebody that's, you know, hourly, but then they'll expect you to work, you know, unpaid hours, right? They'll expect you to work all of these unpaid hours, you know, supposedly to get the job done. Okay? So, those are the people that, by contrast, contract, truly had to work excessive hours without getting paid. And once you work a certain job, I think once you accept a job, if you accept a job and the next thing you know that you're living within the means that was, that you're able to live in because you accepted a job at a certain rate, you can't go back. Okay? Like, when I moved here to Texas, right? And Texas had a lower cost of living when I moved here. Right? So, there's no way to get out of, well, not going to say there's no way, but it's almost impossible to leave a lower cost of living environment and move into an environment where the cost of living is higher, which is one of the reasons why I've been here for 30 years. Right? Because in this 30 years, I'm trying to figure out, how do I get out of here? Right? And I know some people will say, well, can't you go back home? Well, my home is the West Coast, right? My dad's family is in California, and my mom's family is in the Pacific Northwest, right? To today's standard, right? Both of those areas are the most desirable places to live in America, right? And the only thing that makes it the most desired is the natural setting of these of California and Washington State. Okay? It's not the people. It's not even, the it's nature itself that hits those two states so uniquely and beautifully that they are designated as, those are the most desirable states that people want to live, in, the United States. Now, some people will say New York or, the DC areas and stuff like that. That could be true if, your focus is more being around, a lot of diverse people. But a lot of people, it's not everybody's cup of tea, okay? There are people out there that, just want to live their life, not necessarily, feel that being around a whole lot of people is life. But there are people that are like that. And we've talked about that before, Those are your plural-minded egos. The plural-minded egos out there, they definitely believe that it's the people It's just that, you know, single-minded people aren't going to live their day, you know, feeling as if they have to be in constant communication with the people that they know. It's just not something that, you know, is a priority on their list, you know. So we have definitely put the American government on a petition and submitted it to the spiritual court on how, you know, they don't mind starving out, you know, the people that are on the reservations, along with the people that they are calling, you know, regular population to flex. And that's being submitted into the spiritual court. Just so that you know, it's in the Supreme Spiritual Court, okay? So, it's gonna get worse before it gets better. Because at every juncture, you know, these people are flexing more and more and more, right? To them, you know, there's no such thing as compromise. There's no such thing as negotiation, because they're willing to do the ultimate genocide of a population. You see, that's their thinking. They're thinking that if they have the strength and the desire and the motivation and the fortitude to kill a whole generation of people, or even a whole region of people. You know, back in the days when we were growing up, you know, they used to use, you know, threats, you know, to keep people under control. And it was things like, oh yeah, they could take out your whole city, you know, with, you know, one bomb, right? One nuclear warhead could take out your whole city, and nobody would be the wiser. Okay? And it did. It kept people in line. It kept people cooperative. It kept people in the go along to get along, and maybe you'll see another day. Right? And you'll see them in some of the old movies, right? Where they'll say, you know, oh, you know, the contamination, you know, had ruined these people's minds, and they, you know, they're animals, and, you know, and we don't have what it takes to cure those folks, so, you know, we're just gonna have to incinerate the whole town, you know, and they put the whole town under quarantine. They put the whole town under quarantine and literally blow it up, or, you know, it goes up in flames somehow, some way. There sure are a lot of people out on this highway at 3, it's not 3, Wednesday. So, if you're a type of person that can now connect the dots, what you will see is the corruption in plain sight. A lot of people don't want to see it because they know as soon as they see it and recognize it, they won't be able to unsee it. Right? That's like, as soon as you know that your spouse, cheated on you, you can't unsee that. You cannot. And over time, the proof will be in the pudding. Right? That you will either try to regain the love that you felt like you lost, or you will turn in on yourself and start coming up with these weird ass diseases that will end up causing cortisol and other illnesses and diseases. So yeah, I've changed the name of my channel because I got tired. I got really tired of people announcing their sexuality. And I'm like, okay, well, let me announce mine. I'm asexual. Yeah. And proud of it. No apologies. I'm my asexual life. Right? If all of these weird ass, combinations of people can come out here and boast about their life based off of their sexuality, I'm gonna come out here and boast about my life based off of my sexuality. It is asexual. Self-love, baby. Self-love. That's all I can say is self-love. Not to the point where, I don't care about nobody else. Right? But, and technically you could say the people that I care about, they don't need me to care about them because they're good people. Okay. I'm good with that too. So today we're out here taking a ride. It's 80 degrees in November. We had a couple of cold days. It made people, remember that, you do have to prepare for when, things get a lot cooler, because it's going to get a lot cooler for sure. Right? And, that's what those little cold fronts are good for. And, and it usually happens right around Halloween. Right? So, Halloween was supposed to be like to remind us of the transition that occurs, right? And usually around Halloween, we get our first, freezing or cold front. right? Which is a transition from what we had been getting, which was 80 and 90 degrees, and we start seeing, oh my gosh, the last of the harvest needs to be done. And so here we are, in 80 degrees in November. Something like this is not uncommon in California for sure. Okay. California, it's like the same weather, especially in Los Angeles, Southern California. In Southern California, it's like the same weather just about day in and day out. There's usually maybe 10 to 20 degree difference, during the summer. But yeah, that's it. In Seattle, it kind of stays, within, the 80s in the summer. But because it's so humid up there, there's, it could seem a whole hell of a lot hotter, and it's in the 80s. But what I didn't like about Seattle is that it rains a lot, and there's a lot of gray skies. And that's the one thing that I loved about Texas, was the big blue skies of Texas. No doubt. If I was to turn around this camera right now and show you the blue skies of Texas, you would know what the hell I'm talking about. See these big blue skies of Texas? You can get this almost day after day after day. Right? You can get it so often that you will almost take it for granted. Almost take it for granted. And the reason why I say almost, that's because once you start taking it for granted, guess what will happen? A tornado. A flash flood. Ooh, something done happened. Something done happened. They got the flags at half-mast. Now, I don't watch the news, so I don't know what has happened. But they got the flags at half-mast. So I'm going to have to find out what happened. So one of the things that I had posted in my Facebook page was the fact that J.D. Vance and is that Charlie's wife were caught in on a photograph in an intimate embrace, and immediately I was thinking, right, because everybody was like tripping, why would they just kill somebody, for being witty and being able to debate, and to be an uneducated, because he said he only had a high school diploma. Right? And yet, he was debating at, at college level, master's level. Okay? He had the insight as if he had been doing mathematical quantum equations of a scientist with a doctorate's degree. Okay? So that type of situation right there can make a lot of people, unhinged, right? But my mind was telling me, who would be unhinged? It wouldn't be the people who are like, no, there are people out here with very high IQ, A lot of people don't need school to be miraculously intelligent. Okay? And yet, there are people out there, who, aren't miraculously intelligent. However, with practice, and practice, they can regurgitate, what they learned. Okay? And that's one of the things, that, women know, because we pretty much raise our children, right? We have children that we raise, and we could tell them something one time, and you could ask them, what did I say? And they will verbatim tell you what you said, right? And you might even further ask them, what did I mean when I said that? Right? Because if you ask your child, what did you mean when you said something, and even though they were able to verbatim, word per word, tell you what you said, if they get the meaning of why you said what you said right, then you have come across a different type of intelligence, right? That's a different kind of intelligence. So women kind of do this automatically with their children, right? Now, my oldest child, we had invested in phonics with her when she was younger. So she was able to pronunciate any word. She may not know the definition of those words, but she was able to pronunciate these words. And I used to have her read my college level my college level books that I was studying, and I told her that, look, I know that you don't understand every word that you're reading, but this is great practice for you, right? And so she was able to do it, right? My youngest one, she was not. She was not even motivated to do it. She was not even compelled to take on that challenge. All right? So, take a course in phonics. So that was understandable. But you know, emotions have a way of, you know, enhancing our lives, but also it can hinder our lives. So getting back to what I was talking about, where, you know, J.D. Vance was seen, you know, hugging Charlie's, you know, widow, right? The first thing that came to my mind was, you remember the king? I think it was King David. I think it was King David. That seen the wife of one of his let's say subordinates, of one of his subordinates, right, in the kingdom. And he decided that he wanted that wife. He wanted that wife so much that he killed her husband. Right? And once she became a widower, that's when he sent for her and said, you know, he would take care of her. Just like, what? Don't tell me J.D. Vance was being a king and treated poor Charlie like a sacrificial knight. Because he wanted his wife. Woo! And I said it because it was downloaded to me like that. And I was like, yeah, you know, history sort of repeats itself all the time, especially when these men, you know, these men are weak for the flesh. Anyway, I better start turning back. I wanted to see how far I could go. And I wanted to come out here and you know, let my doggies run free in a meadow somewhere. That's what I wanted to do. And they're still developing new homes way out here. They look pretty nice. So I've been taking this medicine, and yes, you know, I still have a lot of mucus and stuff and congestion that I have to get rid of. But it feels as if it's clearing up a little bit. That's how it feels. It feels as if it's clearing up a little bit. they're affordable? I don't think so. So I'm not really sure who they're catering to. It says final phase trophy signature homes. Lake Point. No mud, no pit. Homes from the 400,000s. 400,000s. Lavonia. That sounds almost like a foreign language there. Lavonia. Starting at 400,000. Ooh-wee, you don't want to be out here when there's ice on the road, because this is a very steep little hill here with a bad road. And they're out here building, for sure. Church of Christ. Out here. I'm trying to take my doggies to this park. Somebody out here in his Harley. Yep, that's a Harley. You can always tell by the noise pollution. So what is this area called? Bear Creek? Not Bear Creek. There's a huge body of water somewhere around here. Everything around here is called like Lake something. Gotta remember the way that I'm coming, because there it is. Here's the park. I want to be able to get back out. Lavonia Park. Lavon Lake. U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Let's go see. Oh, look at all this water out here. What the hell? Look at all this water out here. And they got a boat ramp. It says the park hours open at 10 a.m., closed at 10 a.m. Okay. Does it cost to get in? Let's see. Oh. Day use. $5. Annual pass $40. They got campsites here. RV sites $30. Tent sites $14. Maximum stay 14 limits. So there's nobody here. I just want to be nosy because I've never been out here. And oh my God. So that's some of the campsites over there. They got little campsites. You know, barbecue pits, a little shelter, a little picnic bench. They got a toilet. That's the RV campsites, right? Then they got the tent campsites right here. And so they said this is the day use. I'm gonna go this way. Okay. Yeah. So this is actually very beautiful. I'm gonna have to let you see it. And I don't even know what compelled me to come way out here, but here I am. Look at this. This is Lake Lavon, right? And see all of the campsites around here? And you have like restrooms, right? And up there is where they have the RV, and over there is where they have the tent. And like I read, you know, the pricing that they had at the entrance. But I'm gonna let my doggies loose. Hold on. Look at them. Like, can we get out, please? Can we get out? So this is the type of thing that, you know, engineers have to do, right? In order to make water available for the communities that they're trying to grow. Okay? All this water here, as you can see, is a lake, a man-made lake. This is a man-made lake. This is not necessarily a natural lake, even though ultimately it's preserved naturally. Okay? But this is definitely, you know, someplace that, you know, I probably wouldn't have, come on, Gracie! This is probably not someplace that I would have came to during the summer or during like peak time of vacationers, because there definitely would have been somebody, you know, taking entry fees. And the entry fee for, I think, for a whole day was like $14 or something like that. And since it's off season, or maybe it's just a government shutdown, I don't know, I'm able to come in with my pitties, and we're able to enjoy this without being charged. No, you can't. You gotta stop walking around me. That's how you tie me up. So yeah, that's called Lake Lavon. Isn't it beautiful? So I seen an area over here. Oh yeah, that's boat launching. And then I guess they have some trees over there if you want to go hiking. And somebody's down there fishing. Yeah, they got a fishing pole out there. But what I like is, since there's nobody here, I'm letting Snoopy, kind of just drag her own leash around. Rather than forcing her to stay within 6 feet of me. So, yeah. I thought there would be water around here. And it looks like it goes all the way over there and then all the way over there. Amazing. Yeah, nature is very amazing by itself, for sure. Right? Now, for some people, the plural-minded people, they'll be like, oh, this would be amazing in the summertime when it's full and all of these places are filled up with people cooking and, and having a good time. But here I am enjoying it when there's nobody around. So maybe this was something that, could have been a lucrative endeavor, right? If our economy wasn't so jacked up. It says one way. looks like you can come out here and go kayaking, paddleboarding. Really nice. There's a breeze off of the water. Really reminds me a lot of Lake Ray Hubbard in many ways, except Lake Ray Hubbard. Get that out your mouth. Whew. I don't know what the hell that was. I'm glad I got it out of her mouth. So yeah, it looks like there's some type of like inland type of stream going down that way. I don't know, but it does look like there's water down that way. Yeah, see. So along Lake Ray Hubbard used to look kind of like this, not so much developed into like RV and camping and stuff. But now Lake Ray Hubbard is just full of rezoning and the building of homes and stuff. Right, because there's a lot of people who wanted lakefront property to build a house there. And probably in the future, this area will experience some of the same thing. The landscaping will be totally different with lakefront homes. And private, what do you call it? Private docks for boat launching and stuff like that. At least that's what some people desire and are willing, to do what it takes to have that type of lifestyle. And not just an RV, stationed and stuff like that. No, they want to build a whole permanent maybe start as a homestead and then eventually a whole $1 million lakefront property. Sorry. So yeah, they got some little woods there. I think there's a few trails. I don't know if they're official trails or unofficial trails are there for sure. yeah, it was worth it to go on this excursion and come to this unfamiliar lake and park, and that the entry was free and it's empty just for me. No, but yeah. So we're almost back to the car. My dogs were able to go potty. Potty. And so this is nice to be able to see how far I can go and find something new and different. And we found it. And it's at Lake Lavon. And it was free because it's off season. Or could be because the government is closed down. Because I'm thinking, because it was talking about some type of affiliation of government engineers, that could be the reason why it doesn't have anybody guarding the gate. But this was beautiful. I think my dogs are getting tired. Just that fast. So I think I'm going to end the video here. Yeah.